There is a river in China so wide that standing on one bank, you genuinely cannot see the other side. For thousands of years, it fed hundreds of millions of people. They called it the cradle of a civilization. And a few years ago, scientists called it something else. They called it a dying river. So China pulled 231,000 fishermen off at every boat, every net, an entire way of life. And waited. Outside experts said it would never work fast enough to matter. 4 years later, the river is breathing again. They said it was impossible. The Yangtze did not die of one thing, it died of everything at once. Modern industrial fishing vessels replaced the old wooden boats across the late 20th century. These were not upgrades, they were a different category of machine. A single vessel could haul in one day what a traditional boat took an entire month to catch. And there were tens of thousands of them on the river every single day. Layer on top of that, the dam's massive concrete structures that severed the ancient migration routes fish had used for millions of years to reach their breeding grounds, and the factories draining chemical waste into the water from every direction. The fish could not eat because the food chain was collapsing. They could not migrate because the routes were physically blocked. They could not reproduce fast enough to replace the ones being pulled out. And then came the warning the world chose to ignore. The baiji, the Yangtze River dolphin, was declared functionally extinct in 2006. The first human-caused extinction of a cetacean in recorded history, an animal that had shared this river with people for centuries. Gone, not declining, gone. Stat card: baiji, Yangtze River dolphin, declared functionally extinct 2006 first human-caused cetacean extinction. There was a scientist in the room when that announcement was made. He had spent his career trying to prevent it. His name was Wang Ding. And losing the baiji was not the end of his story, it was the beginning of the next one. What China did next sounded less like a rescue and more like surrender until you understand why doing nothing was the most radical thing they could do. Wang Ding is a scientist at the Institute of Hydrobiology at the Chinese Academy of Sciences. For decades, his work centered on the baiji, the dolphin that was slipping away while he watched. He was one of the people who had to look at the data and say out loud that it was over. That a species which had lived in this river for millions of years would not survive the century. There is a particular kind of grief in knowing that, and carrying on anyway. After the baiji, he turned everything he had toward the Yangtze finless porpoise, the river's last cetacean. Same water, same pressures, same trajectory. He had seen exactly where that road ended. That is why Wang Ding matters to this story. Not because he designed the policy alone, because the man who already knew what losing a river felt like was the one still fighting to prove it did not have to happen again. For 50 years, everyone assumed that fixing the river meant doing something to it, building, stocking, engineering a solution. Wang Ding understood something different. The river did not need to be built. It needed to be left alone. Think of a wound that never heals because it keeps getting reopened. You can bandage it, treat it, stitch it, but as long as something keeps tearing it back open, it cannot close. The body already knows how to heal. It just needs the tearing to stop. That is what the ban actually was, not a rescue, a stop. In January 2021, China imposed a basin-wide 10-year total commercial fishing ban across 3,700 kilometers of river and every connected tributary. Around 111,000 boats were pulled from the water. Around 231,000 fishermen were resettled, with over $2.7 billion in compensation, retraining, and ongoing support. The docks that had hummed with engines every single morning for generations went completely quiet. Nets that had been passed down through families for decades, some of them older than the grandparents still mending them, came out of the water and did not go back in. The fishermen were not pushed out and abandoned. A significant number were hired directly by the government as official river monitors, full paid positions, specifically to protect the fish they had spent their whole careers catching. The same hands that had cast nets across the Yangtze for 20, 30, sometimes 40 years were now carrying scientific monitoring equipment up and down the riverbanks. The people who understood this river better than any university laboratory who knew its hidden currents, its deep water gathering spots, its seasonal rhythms that never appeared on any map, became the front line of the recovery. They were not the problem to be managed. They were the most valuable asset the program had. Foreign scientists were skeptical. The timelines required to reverse decades of collapse to rebuild the age structure of a fish population, to restore a food web that had been degrading for half a century. Those timelines ran longer than 4 years. The models said so. And 231,000 families had been uprooted on the strength of a prediction nobody could guarantee. Then the data came back. StatCard, by early 2026, total fish biomass more than doubled in 4 years, 209% rise. Each species diversity up around 13%, peer-reviewed findings. Science 2026, the total fish biomass in the river had more than doubled in just 4 years. Species diversity had risen by around 13%. Large, old fish, the breeding adults that industrial nets had stripped out for decades, were coming back. The river was not recovering on the timeline the models had predicted. It was running ahead of it. There is one creature in this story that needs its own moment. The Yangtze finless porpoise is one of the only freshwater porpoises in the world. Its entire existence, every individual of its species that has ever lived, is confined to this river and its connected lakes. There is no ocean population. There is no backup habitat somewhere else on Earth. If it disappears from the Yangtze, it disappears from everything. Permanently, by 2017, there were only about 1,000 left, and Wang Ding, the scientist who had already watched one species vanish from this river, was watching the countdown on the next. When 111,000 boats came off the water, something happened that no model had fully anticipated. The underwater acoustic environment of the river changed almost immediately. The constant low-frequency engine noise that had been the sonic backdrop of the Yangtze for decades dropped away. The water got quiet. For an animal whose entire sensory world is built around sound, that was not a minor improvement. It was the difference between trying to exist in a room where someone is drilling concrete 3 feet away and stepping outside into actual air. The pollution controls tightened. The fish the porpoises needed for food began to return. Every major stressor that had been hitting them simultaneously started to ease: the noise, the water quality, the food, all at once. A former fisherman, now a river monitor, was out alone early one morning when a porpoise surfaced quietly beside his boat. He had not seen one in over 20 years. He did not reach for a camera. He went completely still and watched it until it slipped back under. And then he sat in silence for a long time after it was gone. By 2022, the finless porpoise population had grown from around 1,000 individuals to around 1,250. About a 23% increase in a species this rare, this biologically fragile, this close to the edge. The results were extraordinary. But the question they raised was harder than the one they answered. If this worked, why isn't it over? Wang Ding has said publicly that the data exceeded what anyone modeled and that the work is nowhere near finished. What happened on the Yangtze is now being studied and cited by governments and researchers on every inhabited continent, not as a solved problem, but as a proof of concept, not just because the results were impressive, because this project achieved something no previous conservation effort had managed: scale, speed, and independently verified scientific proof all at once. Most restoration work operates in small bounded areas. The Yangtze project ran across 3,700 kilometers, resettled hundreds of thousands of families, and produced peer-reviewed results in 4 years. Scientists from France, the United States, and Australia have cited the Yangtze Recovery Program in their own proposals for river restoration. The data is actively being used in arguments for comparable interventions on the Mississippi, the Mekong, and major tributaries of the Amazon rivers, where the biological warning signs are already visible to anyone paying attention. For decades, the public conversation about the environment treated economic development and ecological health as opposites. You grow, or you protect. That framing handed governments and industries a permanent excuse to delay. The communities along the Yangtze are not worse off economically than they were at the height of the fishing industry. Ecotourism has grown along stretches of river that were previously nothing but working docks. River monitoring is now a legitimate profession employing thousands of people. The river coming back to life did not cost these communities their livelihoods. It eventually created new ones. It is not finished. The Chinese sturgeon, a fish that has been on Earth since before the dinosaurs went extinct, is still hanging on by a thread. Critically endangered, dam blocked, with no confirmed wild spawning recorded since 2017. The lone fragile note of hope is a single assisted spawning on the dam-free Qishui tributary in April 2025. One event. A thread, not a recovery. The ban runs until 2031. When commercial fishing eventually returns, the pressure to go back to old patterns will be real and immediate. 50 years of damage will not undo in 10. Anyone who tells you the river is saved is not reading the same data the scientists are. 231,000 fishermen off the water. 111,000 boats. Over $2.7 billion. 10 full years. A river that fed a civilization for thousands of years, given the one thing no one thought a country could afford to give it? Rest. A curve that fell for 70 straight years is finally pointing up. And that in conservation science is not a modest milestone. It is the one that was not supposed to be possible in a human lifetime. Somewhere on that quiet water, a porpoise that should have followed the baiji into the dark surfaces beside a boat looks at the man in it and slips back under. Still here, if your country announced a 10-year fishing ban on its most important river tomorrow, do you think the communities who depend on it would accept it? And do you think it would be worth it? Drop your answer below.